Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Another exciting show, another exciting guest. Today on the show, we have Miss Hazel Ortega on the show, and she's going to talk to us about her best-selling book, Bounce Checks, Private Jets, and more importantly, her quest to show that through all things that happen to you, no matter what the circumstances is, check this out. No matter what the circumstances is, you can change your direction. Hazel, welcome to the show, baby girl.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Before we get started, tell the viewers a little bit about who Hazel is.
Today, I'm an author and a trainer teaching people how to live their best life.
Now, that didn't happen easy for you. We talked a little bit before the show. You dealt with parents that were in and out of the system at a very young age. What was that like for you? And did your life start in California? Because you're in California. Is that where you was brought up, born and raised? Tell me a little bit about how this incarceration and how this stuff affected you growing up.
I was born to teenage parents. By the time I was born, my parents were already separated, and they're both immigrants from Mexico. We grew up in downtown Los Angeles in the poorest neighborhood on welfare, and my dad became a drug addict. He became a heroin addict, and the cycle of coming in and out of jail began as early as I can remember. And in the end, my dad never remarried, didn't have any more children. His whole entire life was about getting high. And he ended up dying at 63 years old from complications related to extreme drug use. And he was absent. So because he was absent, it impacted me in many ways. My mom married and divorced many times, and we were in poverty. My mom had children with different men. She had 7 children with different men. And for most of that time, she was a single mom. So it was really tough for her to take care of us. And she was stressed out a lot because of being alone and having the problems in her relationships. And so that made me feel like I was not enough. I don't understand adult relationships. So when she ended a relationship, it felt like I was the one that was being left. Like I'm not good enough for somebody to stay. And so these are the things that happened when I saw my mom with her husbands or boyfriends when she would break up with them. And as an adult, it manifests itself in that I believe that people can love me, but they can also leave me. And so for that reason, you don't give all of your heart to something, to a partner, to a career, to life. And that's what I had to overcome.
Wow. Let's go back a minute. I'm sorry about the loss of your father and the situation. What's the situation like with your mom now? Is your mom still with us?
No, my mom was, she died of a heart attack a few years ago, and she was incarcerated for 12 years. She was released without any vocational retraining. My mom hadn't worked in she actually had never saw my mom work. And she went to prison and she served a 12-year sentence for killing her boyfriend. This happened when I was 22 years old. And I ended up raising her last 2 kids that she had, who were 4 and 6 years old when they came to live with me. Mm-hmm. And I had a 2-year-old. So all of a sudden I had a 2, a 4, and a 6. And a husband at home. So I had 4 kids at home. Wow. And I was, it was tough. But my mom passed away, and I feel like that's one of the reasons that I'm so passionate about second chances. I believe that if we give people the tools that they can thrive in life, in spite of what they just experienced being in prison. Right. My mom didn't have that opportunity. She came out of prison, didn't know how to get back into society, and so was non-existent. Right. And so she had a heart attack 2 years after coming out of prison. for not taking her medicine. Really, there was no other reason why that had to happen.
Let's go back a little bit, and I know this is impactful for you because these losses are just recent, and they're your parents. But let's go back a little bit. With so much dysfunction going on, who was there for you? I mean, you guys came from Mexico to the United States. Did your family come here for opportunities for you guys, and then got caught up in the U.S. dream? But the dreams kind of filter to drugs. I mean, what was, when you had the ability to talk to your parents, did they come over here to start a new life for you?
Both my parents came here as children. So my mom was 9 years old and my dad was a teenager.
So with them being here, who helped you through all this? Once they start falling to the wayside with addiction and what appeared to be no role models for themselves, who helped you to navigate?
That's a very good question. My mom was a very constant. She was a stay-at-home mom. She was collecting welfare and food stamps. So she was home and she took good care of us. Right. She was overly strict, actually, because the neighborhood was so dangerous. We also grew up during the time where the gangs ruled the streets, and it was really deadly. My best friends were being killed. By the time I was 12, my first best friend was killed. And then many people in the gangs, my friends, were also injured, killed, went to jail, all of that cycle. My cousin was killed in a drive-by shooting. Another cousin of mine was killed by the police department because he was a gang member and looked like he had just robbed a liquor store that was reported, and it wasn't him.
Wow.
So all of these things were happening. Who was there for me? I'll tell you that my mom was there for me. And then the neighbors, we lived in a 60-unit apartment building.
Right.
And my aunt lived across the way. I had another aunt down the hall, and friends. Like we became really close to our neighbors. 60 units, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, 7 people minimum in these apartments. And, you become each other's support system. Right. Then I say I had teachers at school, and I really admire teachers because they make such a difference. And I've had teachers that noticed things about me, like that I should be a student council president, that I should be in plays and in art and act. Those were like really great things that I did when I was young that helped me. Right. And I feel like today I have a lot of gratitude towards the teachers. And then I started working, and I also had my bosses that helped me, that saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. Right. I didn't finish high school, and I got a job like everybody else because your friend works there. It's not because it's your job or somebody asked me was the best, job that you can imagine yourself having. Nobody had that conversation with me. I needed to get a job and help my mom pay bills. I was one of the oldest of the kids, so I needed to help my mom. So I got a job right away, and I started working as a secretary.
Didn't mean to cut you off. Let's go back a little bit. You're doing all this at such a young age. When did your dad fall off out of the picture? When did the drugs happen to take over his life? Because was he even a part of your developmental years?
He was not part of my developmental years. I don't recall living with him. However, my dad was in jail really close to where I live. So whenever he went to jail for 6 months, 8 months, 2 years, we would drive by the jails and the jail where he was at. And my mom would tell me, look, that's where your dad lives. Wave hello to him. And there were these narrow windows, and I thought my dad could see me. I remember being little and waving at him. So there was some type of connection to him. He wasn't missing for me. And then he would write to me, and I would write to him. And when he would write to me, and pick up where the last letter went, left off. So it wasn't like he was just going through the motions. He was very invested in me, and I felt supported in that way. And then every time he came out of jail, I knew, because he would tell me what day he was going to be released, and I knew to expect him a day or two after that. If not the same day that he got released, he came to see me. So I
what was that like when he came to see you? Because you're talking about a father who has a problem with addiction, and probably during that time that he was in and out, they probably didn't have treatment plans or anything established for them. So how many times did he wind up going back as a result of his consequences, or should we say recidivism? He keeps going back and forth, and with him going back and forth in and out, was he ever really a role model and a father then you wanted him to be a father? Does that make any sense?
Yeah. My dad once turned to me and said, I added all the time that I went in and out of jail. Yeah. And I add all those times together, it's 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And so then I told him, that was my entire childhood of him coming in and out of prison. When I was 35, he was clean for 5 years, which is a miracle because, only 3% of heroin addicts actually kick it. But after the 5 years, he met somebody that was also in recovery, and he ended up falling back after starting that relationship. And then soon after that, he died.
Let's go. I'm deeply sorry. And thank you so much for coming on this platform to share such a beautiful and heart-wrenching story too about your life and how you had to deal with this. So let's move forward a little bit. Your mom was cultivating different relationships, different children from this situation. Now that you're an adult and you look back on it, how deeply troubled was your mom? Because it would seem difficult from me on the outside looking in and trying to look in it through your eyes. She's your last line of defense for growing into adulthood in a woman, but you're seeing multiple dysfunctional men coming in and out of the house. I mean, did your mom even think about what that might be doing to you and the other kids that she's bringing into this situation?
No, because when you grow up in poverty, you're in survival mode. You're not thinking about the future. You're thinking about today, and today is about paying the bills and feeding yourself and your children, keeping the lights on. So that's what was her primary focus. And so she thought that she could protect us from any wrongdoing by her husbands. And, a couple of her husbands did molest my sisters. And she, as much as she thought she could protect us, she really, she didn't.
What happened when your mom was confronted with this information from your sisters? And did any of these men try to make advances to you? Because when you mention survival mode, we're going to get with this in a minute. I would think when you're that deep, even though this harm is being perpetrated on your daughters, you kind of like maybe outweigh the balances. Hey, he's a man in the house. I live in a bad neighborhood. He's working. Did your mom even address it? She was like, okay, we got to make the best out of it.
Excuse me. She was making the best out of it. She did not address it. And that caused a lot of distress to my sister.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me.
You're fine.
And I asked my mom as an adult, why didn't she do anything when my sister told her that her husband was molesting her?
So your mom being in survival mode probably made her not even want to address the fact that her, at the time, male companions were doing inappropriate things with your sister? And then there's a two-part question: were any of these things placed upon you? And how did you bring this to your mom, and about what age was it that you brought it to her? Because clearly, if it was during a younger period of your life, she wasn't trying to hear that if she's in survivor mode. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So my sister came to my mom when she was maybe 5 years old to tell her that her husband was being inappropriate with her. And my mom didn't tell her husband anything, didn't address it with him, just told my sister, well, stay away from him. And so my sister tried her best to avoid him. And as an adult, my sister has a lot of issues. She's an alcoholic. And when she drinks, she's very upset about it. She brings it up a lot. Then my mom never did anything about it, didn't protect her. I spoke to my mom from prison. I was about 40 years old, and which was like not that long ago. And I asked her, this when she was alive, right? I asked her why she didn't do anything when my sister told her that her husband was molesting her. And she said, I thought that I could protect her. If I did anything, who was going to pay the bills if I kicked him out? The lights, everything. I couldn't stay home with you and take care of you if he was gone. And so she said, I really tried my best to, make sure that he was never alone with her.
But you know what? That's really, I hope the people are really listening to this, because this goes deep.
Yeah.
It shows you the level. Yeah, it shows you the level that people in this world have to deal with when you have to choose inappropriate behavior and endangering your children's life over survival to keep lights on, food on the table, and I guess worry about the consequences later of your actions. But my next question, you being a little bit older than them, none of these men ever tried anything with you. And did your sisters and your siblings come to you for protection because your mom wasn't doing it? And then another part of this question, I know I'm asking a lot of questions. My mind is blown away. Your dad was in prison, so there's nothing he could have done about it either.
No, there was nothing. And nothing happened to me, thank God. One time an uncle tried to make a move, an inappropriate move. And I quickly
uncle, wait a minute. You said an uncle?
Yep.
Your mother's brother?
No, my mother's sister's husband.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So my mom was molested herself, and she was always talking to us about protecting ourselves from inappropriate touching. And so when that happened to me, I knew immediately that he's not supposed to be doing that. And so I quickly stopped it, and it never happened again. One time he tried it, and I stopped him in his tracks. So what now, we tell parents, I became a psychologist, and we tell parents they need to talk up to their kids about this, because usually they get molested by family members, and it's during opportunity where the parents are not there. So your kids have to know that nobody should be touching them. And so that happened for me. I was already an older kid when that happened, but my sister was too little. I don't know if my mom had that conversation with her at that time.
Did your sister come to you for help when she was little, when this was happening?
No.
Does she have any resentment? Because a lot of times if it happened to them and you're in the household, they might be like, well, why didn't this happen to you? And the blame, it's like trying to find someone else to either relate to what happened to them or be pissed off because it didn't happen to you. Did your sister get mad because it didn't happen to you? Or the level of things that happened to her wasn't as equally, what some people might say, equally balanced?
She never told me anything about having resentment that it didn't happen to anybody else. That's not something that she shares. She is just very impacted by the fact that, your mother is supposed to protect you, And if that doesn't happen, then it occurs to her like that even the world is not safe for her. And it manifests itself in her alcoholism, and she won't stop, and she won't go to therapy either because she doesn't want to relive that experience.
Yeah. So now we're going to talk about something that's even more impactful, because this leads up to a little bit stronger part of your story, that you're talking about the effects of going into prison and coming out of prison. So your mom wound up going to prison for killing her boyfriend, correct? Or her husband? Which one was it?
It was a boyfriend.
Boyfriend. Was it a result of domestic stuff? She was being abused, maybe? I mean, without getting too deep, what do you know that led up to the situations when I'm asking?
Yes, absolutely. She was pregnant by her 7th child, and he was threatening her, and she thought he was going to hit her, so she defended herself.
You would think she got kids, and I get it. You know, you a mother's instinct is to stay there with her kids, but what I can't understand, how do you stay on the lam for 5 years as a fugitive and you still got kids? Like, it seemed like to me the FBI, they'll be monitoring your phones. I mean, help me, walk me through that, because I have no idea how she did this.
Yeah, they did monitor our phones. They raided our house in the middle of the night several times. They followed us. They showed up to our parties. They thought that she was among us. And that was not the case. She wasn't with us. And so they didn't find her that way. Eventually, my sister turned her in.
I was just getting ready to say that, because she was angry because her mom, she still held the guilt for her mom letting that stuff happen to her as a child.
It wasn't even that sister. It was another sister. My mom confided in her that she was feeling a lot of stress because the kids were growing up and people were asking her, why your kids are not in school. And the 6-year-old looked like he was 8 years old. And so she didn't know what to do, and told my sister that she felt like killing herself and taking the boys with her, because what kind of life would they have without their mother? And so that made my sister turn her in. My sister was...
She was afraid her mom was going to kill herself, or she was afraid that wasn't the way to raise her brothers and her brothers and her siblings?
She was afraid that my mom would, that there would be a tragedy. My mom would kill herself and take the boys with her, as she said.
Okay. But you knew. How did your mom stay in contact with you?
Well, those are kinds of things you don't talk about. And so she found her ways to communicate and get her needs met for 5 years until she went to prison. And she left with a 1-year-old, and she was pregnant. She's a survivor.
Wow. I know you're getting ready to do a movie deal. I want to be a part of it. I want to be a part of that, just to know the behind the scenes where
yeah. And
how did
imagine this.
You guys had to be held to secret for 5 years. I mean, who was the voice of reason to your mom? You're like, hey, eventually you're gonna have to face up with what's going on. Now I know you're throwing parties. Everybody has to know in your circle.
Everybody knew. My mom was on television. There's a show like America's Most Wanted, but it's in Spanish channels called Placas. And basically they put any fugitives on there with a reward. So all our community knew about it. Our family knew. Her voice of reason, was herself. People know, she was on her own, and she would live in certain communities and make friends, and she changed her appearance, changed the boys, and she survived. I'm speechless. Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show with
part 2 of Lear Jets, different lifestyle, and motivating people with the one, the only Miss Hazel Ortega. Welcome back to part 2 of your truly outstanding journey from, I call it almost a Cinderella story. You know, when you follow your career all over social media and reading your book, and you just find it hard to believe that out of all of this, I don't even know if it's called turmoil. I would just think of all the different things that has happened to you in your life. You managed to come out smelling like a little bit of roses. But let's finish up with where we left off. Your mother. Your mother was a fugitive from justice. She had killed her boyfriend, domestic violence, on the run. You basically are trying to keep the family together. How did all that? What wound up happening with your mom? I know your sister. I don't even want to use the word betrayal. Let me use this word. She was coerced by therapy to make a decision instead of really analyzing the big picture. Did she come to you with what her therapist has said, and did you guys talk about it, or did she already had turned her in, and then she decided to confide in you that she was the one that did it?
My sister was in therapy while my mom was a fugitive, and she told the therapist that my mom shared her feelings of wanting to commit suicide and take my brothers with her. The therapist is a mandated reporter whenever children are involved, and she reported it to the police. Police came and spoke to my sister and convinced her to let them know where my mom was. I didn't know. She didn't come to me. She told me 7 years later about that. And I feel for her because I wouldn't want to be the person that did that, because she has to live with that. And I forgive her. Not that it's my place, but I'm not angry with her, and I forgive her, and I understand. It is a situation that nobody knows what to do. There's no way to judge people for mistakes maybe that they made or decisions that they made that you would have done something different. Mm-hmm. Everybody deals with it in a different way. And she had influences in her life that led her down that way. But I definitely did not have a conversation with her about it. I don't know that that's the route that I would have taken.
How was your mom captured?
My sister went to the location where my mom was staying, and the general vicinity, because nobody really knew where she was staying exactly.
Right.
But we knew what city, and she would call from different areas and ask for rides and things like that. So we knew more or less where she was. And so she told the police more or less where she was within like a block or two. And they had surveillance, and she told them what she looked like currently.
Man, that sounds crazy. But now that you look, your mom had to eventually find out what happened. You know, who told on her, because it's called the discovery paperwork. And what did she find out? Did your mom find out who told on her? So who set her up? Because to me, it seemed like when she got arrested and she got brought back up in front of the judge and stuff, that they had to basically show discovery. Now, how she was captured, the names of the people that was involved in it. Did she share any of that with you when you finally saw your mother?
Well, no, my mom didn't know, and none of us knew. We wanted to know, but because it was her own daughter, the attorneys decided to not share that information. And so we didn't know until my sister told me. She didn't tell my mom, and we didn't tell my mom either. However, I'll tell you that when my mom was caught, she was asked how did she feel, and she told the police that she was relieved. She was tired of running.
That was probably my next question. Like, I couldn't imagine being on the run like that for so many years and having to conceal everything about who you are. How long did she stay in? How long did she stay in?
12 years.
How old was she when she got captured?
About 48 years old.
You know, I hate to say this. That's almost crazy. I mean, you you didn't murder someone. You was protecting your life. And I think maybe you can answer this better than I can. I get it that she's pregnant. I get that, once a child is born, it's a whole different ball game when it comes to a mother and her child. You don't want to be separated. But when you sit back and you look at everything that had happened, it might have been better off with her just going on in and seeing what the charges would have wind up being in the long run. Felony manslaughter or reckless homicide. Anything outside of murder would have kept her sentence served or maybe probation or something. I know we can't look back on what should have, could have had happened, but let's move forward with the simple fact that she goes and gets captured, serves her time. She gets out at, let's get real, not the most pleasant age to leave prison and to leave with what? I mean, what did she leave with?
Yeah, nothing but bad habits, new tricks. My mom left prison a different person. But what I'll tell you with her state of mind and maybe what I know now about psychology, my mom was surrounded by people that were going to jail. My dad was in jail for 20 years, in and out of prison. And so her brother went to jail, the third strike law. Her brother went to jail, served 21 years for stealing a van. So being incarcerated was a real possibility for her, even though she knew that she had, she defended herself. And that's the situation that occurred in the death of her boyfriend. But she was scared of going to jail. It was a real possibility for her and a real fear. So Latinos and not having, money to represent yourself, like, she didn't feel safe to turn herself in.
How do you feel about the legal system? This is a two-part question. How do you feel about the legal system now? You study psychology. You definitely got your life together. You definitely are going around sharing such a beautiful and impactful story to change the way people think and the way in which they make decisions in their lives. But two-part question here. How do you feel about the system now? Because your mom left out a different person. She left out a prison at a very older age, so to speak. And what do you do with somebody that's in their 60s and 70s that's been incarcerated that only knew the penal system? You give them what, $50, $100, and like the movie Wall Street, where Michael Douglas got out of prison, they gave him an old cell phone and a couple of dollars, and it's like, okay, what do you do now? It's not like they got skill sets in the institution. Because this happened to your mother, because it happened to members of your family, almost like, I don't even want to use the word generational curse. Let's just call it things that her surroundings put in place of her, also feared her, and her fears came to life. How do you look at the penal system? How do you look at what happened to your mom getting out at an older age? How did she manage to fend for herself? Who was there for her? Because the bottom line is, who's going to trust you now? Because the media, the things that you told people to survive, they're not going to understand none of that.
Yeah. When my mom was released, she was 62 years old and she was deported to Mexico. And she never became a legal citizen because when she came here to the United States, she was 9 years old, brought by her parents. And so my mom was able to start a life here, get social security number, get driver's license, ID, insurance. collect welfare, have children, have a full life, cross the border without having a birth certificate or a passport. It was really easy to create a life here. And then laws started to change after 2001, after September 11th, where they require passports at the border. And then my mom got flagged. And so when she was, done with her prison time, they deported her. Actually, they put her in a detention camp, the kind that's going on right now, where they put the immigrants that are rounded up, the undocumented immigrants. They're there while they're waiting for an immigration judge to decide whether they can stay in the United States or be deported. My mom went to this detention in Arizona, detention camp, and she said she was waiting for her hearing to tell the judge, I've been in the United States since I was 9 years old. I've been to Mexico twice in my life after that. I don't have family there. And my children, my grandchildren, my life is in the United States. Give me a chance to stay. Well, that hearing, you never know when it's going to be. It could be in 2 months. It could be in 2 years. And in the meantime, she's already released and done her time, but then now she's in this other detention. And it's worse than prison. This detention area where she's being held is worse than prison, where she was actually serving her time. So all these people that are here undocumented, which is a whole nother topic, but I'll tell you that they're criminal in the sense of something administratively. They don't have a piece of paper. My mom, was there and held there. And it was so horrible that she actually requested to be deported. And she foregoed her right to have a hearing before the judge. And that would have changed a lot of things for her if she had stayed here in the U.S. However, the conditions of where she was staying was that bad that she requested to be deported.
What do you mean, like they were bad? Did she share with you the conditions? Because I think a lot of people, unless you walk in somebody's shoes, you don't know what it's really like. I mean, we see Hollywood images of, I think the first time I even saw anything remotely that was when I saw Scarface, and they were in the detention thing. But you're telling me it's far worse. What were some of the things that she had to endure that was different than being in prison?
So in prison, you get categorized, right, by danger, right? So if you're high security, like they need to watch you because you're
level 1, level 2, level 3,
mental illness and things like that. And in the camps, everybody is all together. They're not assessed to that. They're all together, And so another thing, they are bigger spaces, more together. In my mom's prison cell, she had 8 people. And in the detention center, you have 50 people in an open area. Yes. And it's very, very cold. Okay. And my mom was older and she had problems with her bones and she was getting a lot of leg cramps. And the medical attention also is something that it's not, up to par. At least in the prisons, you get your proper medical attention and medications. And this is something that in the detention centers it's a deficit of that. So proper health care is non-existent there. So my mom chose to deport, and she did.
Did you guys go and report these conditions and these things to the proper authorities? Like, hey, my mom's already done her time. Can she get some consideration and get in front of the judge or something?
We did many times. But that's just how there's so many people just like her. They're not going to expedite her case. There was no extraordinary reason. Everybody else was going through what she was going through.
When she winds up getting deported, she hasn't been to Mexico but twice. She's 60-something years old. No family. And people need to understand this. This isn't a a younger person going to another country. This is a mature older woman with no family at all. When she got deported, what was the first thing that she did? Did she contact you? Did she contact, who did she reach out to? You just ain't gonna get off the bus and go, what do I do now? At the crossroads, here you go.
Yeah, she was given a plastic bag with a sandwich and 2 bottles of water. And that was it. She called her brother and managed to get help from him. And then he called us. And then we all went to Mexico, to the border here, the southern border of California and Mexico, which is Tijuana. And we gathered there with her and we rented a hotel.
Now, where was her brother living at? Was he already in Mexico or was he still in the States?
Her brother worked here in the States and went back and forth to Mexico on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
So he worked here for Monday to Thursday, and on Thursday night to Monday morning, he was in Tijuana. My mom and her brother didn't get along. So she couldn't
They didn't get along. Why they didn't get along? I mean, they're both around the same age, and I think you would at least get along now. What do you got to argue about? Your life is short now.
They were like 2 15-year-olds. Like they didn't know how to deal with each other. They had a lot of anger, a lot of hurt from the past. My uncle was very judgmental. My mom was very sensitive. And I heard them argue one time in the car over something that happened 50 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, my mom got out of prison like very childish, very manipulative. And my uncle didn't let her get away with it. And he would call her out on it. And so for an example, I went to rent her a house and it was really nice. And she said she didn't like the neighborhood. She said she didn't like something else. And then I went to see another house and and she just was never happy with anything that I presented her. And my uncle turned to her and told her, you're ungrateful. Your daughter's showing you all these, nice places to be and you just find something wrong with everything. And then that just sparked them to just argue horribly about
that brings up a good scenario. You just highlighted 2 different personalities, both dealing with some issues of childhood. What was it like for your mom in her family growing up with their parents? We know how they were, your parents were, but how were their parents?
Trauma. Their dad was an alcoholic and he came from a prominent family in Mexico. He had like the kind of family that you see in the magazines. My mom's cousins are in government and one of them is on track to be one of Mexico's next presidents. However, their father was the black sheep and alcoholic. And so he was disinherited and died a horrible death on a dirty, ugly mattress in a shed. And my mom's father would abuse their mother, hit her. One time with his car, he smashed their house because they lived in a shed. He rammed the car into their house and flattened it. And that was their childhood. And then my grandmother left their dad and came to the United States to escape him.
What was the biggest turnaround for you? Seeing so much almost hopeless. Let's call it what it is. What appears to be hopeless as you get older. When you're young, this shit looks normal. You either say this is normal, but then as we start to evolve, we realize, this shit ain't normal. You know what I mean? I'm looking at other people. This shit ain't normal. When did you decide? What was the shift for you, and about what age was that?
I would say about 26 years old is when I changed my environment. I started working at a prestigious law office as a secretary, and I met a Latino professional. And I thought all Latinos lived the way we live. And I met a Mexican attorney, and he only had one kid. And I asked him, baffled, why do you just have one kid? You have money. You know, Mexicans have a lot of kids, and I'm going to have a lot of kids. And then he said, no, you don't have to have a lot of kids because you're Mexican. He said, I wanted to have a child, not populate the world. And that made me realize I don't have to have a lot of kids either. And I only had one child myself. But initially, I thought I was going to have, at least 5 kids, just, like every other Mexican family.
It's so funny that you said it. I'm a tap on this real quick. This must be deeply, deeply rooted, because we see that in not only the Latino community, the Mexican community, but we also see it in the uh in the Black families as well. And I kind of know why this is, but I don't want to give my viewpoint on it. But why do you think that this is so ingrained culturally that that our cultures feel like they need to have all these kids and forget that it can also come with some headaches, some major responsibilities? You know what I mean? Like, what's your take on that?
My take is that we want to be like everybody else. And
Okay.
that's your surroundings. Everybody has a lot of kids. It's normal. And you're the abnormal one if you only have one. For me, everybody around me would tell me that my daughter was lonely and I should have more kids and what's wrong. And there's no studies that show that one child has any detrimental impact by not having a sibling. As a matter of fact, my daughter had a way better life because she had no other siblings.
She
we
had
have,
less. She had
we
less to compete
want,
with.
our brain wants to fit in with our environment. That's the biggest danger that we have, is because if you are poor, you stay poor. 60% of people grow up in poverty, stay in poverty. And 76% of people do as their parents do. So that's a lot of pressure. You to break out, it's really hard to break out.
When you decided to break out, how was you looked at upon your family? I'm gonna use an example, use myself as an example what I'm talking about. One of my friends, Victor Edwards, went to high school with him, went to elementary school with him. This was down in the South. And it wasn't until a couple months ago, no, it was last year, that, he called me out of the blue. His daughter follows us on social media. And he says, hey, I know that guy. I went to school with that guy. And he said, man, he was telling his daughter the story, my story of overcoming and so forth. And you know what I told him? I said, I never thought about my own life. I only knew that I had to do things that were different to not put myself in the same situations, like you said, that I see happening before me. I knew that there had to be something better. Now, moving forward to my question with you, my dad asked me a question. He was talking about my different siblings and their personalities. I said, Dad, it's the environment in which they came up. You have multiple children by multiple women. You're going to be raised differently. What you project as everybody should get along is not the norm, because you're dealing with multiple personalities, multiple environments, and it just don't work like that. When you decided to see life for what it really was, how did your family look at you now? Because you didn't follow that same yellow brick road. You decided to make a detour somewhere.
Yeah, I can't tell you that I did a conscious decision about it. That's the thing that people get it wrong. People look at my story and think if I did it, everybody can do it. And in reality, I had a certain set of circumstances. I got exposed to other things that my family didn't. The rest of my sisters didn't. And they didn't have that. I got an aha moment, like when I saw that Mexican man tell me that I don't have to have many children. That
Mhm.
was like, oh, what? I had the conversation with him, not my sister. And he was a mentor to me, a pushy angel. He saw something in me that I couldn't see for myself. And
Mhm.
he became very interested in me getting an education. I actually got very lucky to have exposure to somebody that cared about Latinos getting an education, right? And so that is an exposure that my rest of my family didn't have.
Mhm.
So I listened, right? Remember, I told you my mom told me pay attention to people's opinions based on who they are. And,
Mhm.
where do the opinions come from? And so I saw this person as a successful person who was giving me good advice, and I followed it.
Mhm.
Okay. So my family, how did they take it? They get confronted by it, right? And at first, they would tell me to stop acting white. My mother told me to stop being ridiculous and stop going to college and stay home and take care of my kids and my husband. Like, why are you doing that? Like, you're not going to be professional. You're ridiculous. Your job is to stay home and take care of your kids and your husband.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so it was very confronting to everybody. But I
Mhm.
just didn't stop. I wanted to complete what I started. And so at every time that I completed what I started, I thought I was going to stop there, but then I felt so much more capable
Mhm.
and life kept getting better and I
Mhm.
kept feeling smarter and having clarity around like, if I change my behavior, good things can happen. Before life just happened to me and I was a victim of life.
What
And
about your husband? Was he supportive? I mean, because you're talking with a cultural issue here that's looking at the glass half full and no way to really fill it without it overspilling. What was his belief with you guys' culture and you wanting to not follow the yellow brick road, but to look at a different way of life?
I was very lucky to choose somebody who didn't get in my way, right?
Mm.
Like he doesn't have to like what I like and he doesn't have to go to school himself. However, just don't get in my way of what I have to do.
Mhm.
And he was supportive and he took care of the kids. And so that was very helpful to me. We ended up getting a divorce because I was at school so much that we grew apart. And actually, if couples don't grow together, that could be detrimental to the relationship. And that's what happened to us. We couldn't relate to each other anymore
Mhm.
after I graduated from higher education. And so we just very cordially decided to get a divorce.
It's so funny that you said that. I was going to write a post about that very same topic. Like, you have to be the way to a man and a woman's success is actually who you marry.
Hmm.
They can either you can either and then some people actually like yourself, you was moving faster than your mate. Now he might have been on injured reserve. He could have caught up, but he didn't catch up. And you kind of realize that. Was it hard because you come from family structure, so was it hard for you to separate from the your marriage? Because I don't want people to think that you was just like, oh, blah blah blah. You're not your culture isn't like that. You had to have a bond. So was that difficult for you for you guys to separate like that?
My culture isn't like that. However, my upbringing is that you could get a divorce if you're not happy. My mom married and divorced many times. All those different men that she had babies with were her husbands. I asked her, why did you get married so many times? And she thought each time was forever. On my wedding day, I was very nervous, and my mom told me, "Don't be so nervous. You could always get a divorce." Yeah. So I left him, and quite easily. Later, I did, feel the impact of it. Once you get the divorce papers, there's a feeling about that, and so it was.
What was that feeling? I'm curious. What was that feeling?
Well, I felt alone. When you're married, you have the strength of two, and where there's two, it's exponential. You can be very successful with the right partner. You feel support. And he is the father of my daughter. I had another issue where he was in an accident after we were divorced, and it was grave. I thought he was going to die. And I also again felt I was going to be alone raising my daughter without a father. And I realized how valuable he is as a person. Before, I didn't value men because I saw my mom raise children without a man. So I thought that they weren't needed. And when he had this near-death experience, I really felt his presence and how important he is. And just even thinking the impact on my daughter's father to be gone is terrible.
You mentioned your mom said you saw yourself taking or seeing some of the things that your mom went through without different men, but then they're not there. Chemical dependencies, just the whole 9 yards. You saw complete dysfunction when it came to relationships. You get ready to get married, and your mom says, "Oh, don't worry, you can, always divorce." And my question here is, you have very minimum space with your mom, as her being a fugitive and trying to save herself and try to save your brothers. Two-part question: what was the most valuable things that you got from your mother as far as lessons that you carry to this day? um and then the second part of the question is, how is your brothers? How did they adjust through all this? Because at one particular point she was protecting him, and then at one point, according to your sister, she was going to take her life in their life.
Okay, so growing up, my mom was home. She was a stay-at-home mom on welfare, and her number one goal was to take care of us and make sure that we were safe. Right? Imagine, like, you just want your kids to survive. She really thought if she wasn't there that we could die or our lives could get ruined. So she was home, and that support, like having a constant, presence, love, that is one of the biggest things. I felt very loved. And my mom would read a lot of psychology books. And so she was like programming us to feel valuable, things that she didn't have for herself, things that she wished that her mother would have told her, like how to value yourself. My mom would say, never let a man touch not even one hair on your head. You are too valuable. Somebody to touch you in a way that's going to hurt you. You're too valuable. So all of us grew up, all my mom's 5 daughters, we are all the bosses wherever we go. Either if we have a job, we become the manager at that job. And we are all like the strong personalities in our relationships as well. So we're like the boss in our relationships also. Yeah. And so we grew up with this strong personalities, and men, don't mess around with us, like we don't get hit. We don't get abused. They
better watch out, But isn't that kind of like, I'm trying to use the right words here, so bear with me. I get that. I get me. I have 2 daughters. I get it. You value. But when does over femininity and over masculine take away from the man? I mean, how does your husband? I mean, your husband. You now remarried, right? So how does he feel about this strong um, overly femininity into the relationship?
I'm not remarried, but I do have a long-term relationship, which is exactly what I was looking for. And I have 17 years living in a stable relationship. That was, that's better than I could have dreamed of.
Mm-hmm.
How does he feel? He grew up with a successful family unit. Mother was a retired teacher, and his father retired also from his job. And they've been together for 45 years.
Mm-hmm.
And a really good family structure and an example.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see his father with his mother, and I can see where my partner gets being a good partner from. He learned from his dad, and
Now,
he loves me and supports me. And I
Mhm.
actually, before I got into a serious relationship, I knew that I wanted somebody that can be with a strong, successful woman. I had to attract a man that could have that ability.
Now let's ask the last question. Your brothers, how are they dealing with everything that happened and their reflection on their mother?
My brothers are beautiful souls. They have no animosity towards my mother. My mother killed their father, and they've never once spoken ill of her. No regrets. Honestly, like not even an opinion. Like their only job is to love her.
How's your mom now? Is she still with us? Is your mom still with us today?
No, my mother was deported from prison, and when she left prison, she had a bag full of prescriptions, medicine,
Mhm.
and she didn't know how to take care of herself when she got out. She stopped taking the medicine. Instead of buying the medicine with the money we sent her, she would spend the money doing other things. And within 2 years, she had a heart attack and died. She was actually found in a trash can in an alley in Mexico.
I'm sorry to hear that. Very sorry.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm doing work, that I do, because I think if my mom, everybody, if you know better, you do better.
Yeah.
I got lucky to be in the right environment around people that were doing other things in different ways than what I saw in my environment back home in my community. So I started going back to school. I started investing. I started changing friends and reading books and learning a lot. And so that made me have different opportunities. And so
No one.
I have a nonprofit. I speak in prisons. I share my book in the prisons. I'm a keynote speaker and the only person asked to return to San Quentin to be a speaker to that community. And I want people that are formerly incarcerated to learn something while you're in there, take the opportunity, and then come out and do better. And you can do better. Right now, I have a play about my life. It was written and it's coming to LA next month. I'm really excited about that. And
Congratulations on that.
thank you. And we're giving away 1,000 tickets to formerly incarcerated and their family to come and see on stage how you can break free from your mental prison.
What's the name of the play? What's the name of it?
It's named Liberándome, which is a Spanish word, which is freedom.
And is this a story about you overcoming? Is it more impactful? Is it a story based on your mother?
It's a story about me. However, it's a very strong presence. My mother is a character in the play. So people can see that my mother killed her boyfriend, became a fugitive, and went to prison. And a lot of people have a story of like, well, my parents went to prison and therefore, it's natural that I go to prison. It's natural that I'm in poverty. It's natural that I have a life that doesn't work. They use their parents or their upbringing as an excuse. And so they get to see how bad my story is. I mean, there's no dry eye in the audience and they get to feel it And then we have a documentary about it. And at the end, everybody feels like, wow, I can do anything, because if Hazel was able to overcome her childhood trauma, I can do anything. And so they come out very inspired, and no more excuses.
I'm sitting here and I can't get this image out of my mind of seeing your mother being found in a dumpster. Nobody should ever have to be in that situation with their last days on this planet. And to know that she spent so many years in a system, and it makes you wonder, when people get in this situation, incarceration, is it just profitable just to keep them there and not offer them things, or is it up to the inmates to ask for opportunities so they don't come back out in a recidivism type situation or a mental crisis? I mean, how do we really fix the system? That's my question to you. How do we really fix the system? You lost your mother to it. She came to this country at 9 years old. At that particular point in time, you probably didn't need all these paperworks and stuff. You know what I mean? And the same with her trying to live the American dream, she wind up at the end going back to Mexico and wind up dying there. That's really sad. What needs to be done? I know you're speaking, you're doing plays, but outside of that, let's be candid. You've lived this shit. What needs to be done?
Yeah, we need to teach the right education to kids. Teach them how to create a vision in spite of your current situation. Teach them accountability. There's meditation, positive self-talk. Right now, I also have a curriculum for children, for the poorest children in the world. And we teach them to think of a future that's better than their current circumstances. And we launched in Uganda, right, in Africa, and throughout Latin America in the poorest communities. And then here, I launched it in Los Angeles Unified School District. The program is called Little Alchemists. And basically, though, my big vision is to end mass incarceration. So at the current level, with the incarcerated, they need, proper preparation for when they come out, right? Because they come out and they're not at base level, right? They're below base level. So where they can get jobs, and then they leave the job because somebody told them something that they didn't like. They don't know how to stay, right? And so they're so impacted. They need a different kind of training. The prison system, some of the prisons do have training, which is fantastic. However, the police that are patrolling them and watching them also at the same time squish their self-esteem, right? And so they treat them very badly. And then if you feel like you're lower than dirt, you're below baseline, then why the training won't work? Your training is like putting you're putting like really good stuff on top of shit.
But you're talking about taking away. Let's get real. I mean, you brought this up. Prisons are corporations now. They can care less. They're about prison reform. It's about major companies that can contract prisoners to work at a cheaper cost and turn around and sell goods, products, and services to you, the consumer. So it's easy to shift the way of thinking. Let me rephrase this. The average consumer could care less about somebody going in and out of a prison system, but they fail to realize that half of the goods and services from large manufacturers, even minimum manufacturers, come from the prison system. So they're more concerned about bodies going in versus bodies going out. So you're not going to get funding, or the funding, the funding, the the standing ovations to put those programs in a system that generates billions and billions of dollars worldwide.
Yeah. My mom was working while in prison, getting paid 30 cents an hour. And she was making Victoria's Secret underwear. And she was sewing. She actually had a work related injury of carpal tunnel and cubital tunnel problems with her wrist and her elbows when she got out of prison, and her fingers and hands went numb.
So, Hazel, your mom's fingers, while she was in prison doing stuff for Victoria's Secrets, all of a sudden she leaves the prison system and her fingers gets numb. She don't get any workers' comp, nothing, because she's not even, let's call it what it is, she's not even legal. She's been deported. What's your take on that your mom spent so much, countless hours, probably only making, 25 cents for a company that charges almost $30 for a pair of panties?
Yeah, it's like a servant labor, right? Mm-hmm. And she worked long hours. It was not even like ergonomically correct. You know, when you go work at an employer, they set you up, according to your height, you're sitting properly. Everybody should watch themselves with that, because now that most people are working from home remotely, mm-hmm. Once you damage the nerves in your hands and your elbows, it's irreversible. You need surgery or you need to change jobs. And so, with my mom, I felt that she was basically a slave in jail, getting paid 30 cents an hour.
That's crazy. For how many years was that? How many years?
12.
So multiply 30 cents times, they probably made them work 5 days a week, 2 days off. That's not even a lot of money.
No, not at all. And then the jail sells you their products and they're marked up. So like if you want to eat an avocado, it might cost $3 at the market, but it'll cost $7 to them inside.
The biggest scam the United States has going on right now is privatized prisons. And people, what's still funny, people still don't believe that exists. They go, you're crazy. That's not how it works. I said, ask people whose parents are part of that system. Talk about the people that got busted with companies, like you said, Victoria's Secrets, and I believe a couple potato chip manufacturers are operating out of. But it's illegal, but it's not illegal. It's cheap labor.
No, and they're making a lot of money. They also have a magazine where they sell televisions and jackets and shoes and socks, and everything is overpriced. Yeah, and so somebody needs to look into it, but nobody will, because the lobbyists, they donate so much money to be able to operate this way. And I just want to tell you, the world of visiting them, for us, I used to go visit my mom, and it's expensive, right? Mm-hmm. You go visit, and then you have to buy food while you're there, because you can visit up to 8 hours in one day and stay with them. And you have to eat when you're there, and it's expensive. The food is expensive. And like the avocado is $7, right? It's not going to solve your hunger. Yet there's 5 people visiting.
Yeah.
So you can't go that often because it's expensive, or you have to eat before you walk in, because if you eat there, it's really expensive. So yeah, it's a whole economy in there.
Let's talk about, before we wrap up, the loss of your mom. Tragic, how she passed away. Not something I would even imagine happening to anybody. Going to another country after being here for so long, being caught up in the system, all because of a simple domestic situation that never should have happened, has changed everybody's life at this particular point. How are you dealing with all of this now, knowing that your mother's no longer with us, and the things that she had to deal with to raise beautiful daughters, a beautiful family, beautiful sons, and to, let's call it what it is, be let down by not only a country that she loved, but also going back to a country that she had no real ties to be taken away from us.
How do I deal with it? I share my story, and I'm hoping to lower, mass incarceration and mass incarceration, actually, sharing my story and suffering. Right? We don't have to follow the trajectory of our parents. At the end of the day, it's the individual's responsibilities to live a right life, right? But my mom didn't have access to this knowledge. I
Mm-hmm.
think my mom, if she knew the power that she had to make different choices, she would, but she didn't know. And so she just followed the trajectory that was, for people that, are trapped in their mind. And so there are so many people that are victims of life. And that's why I am such an advocate for people getting the right education from like as early as possible.
How are you
Like how
being
to feelings.
how are you being received right now with this campaign that you're going around trying to stop mass incarceration and ignorance? Not ignorance. Let me use a different word. Not having resources available to educate you. Like, how are you being received right now with the social media and people in general?
They love it. They share it. They invite me. I went to San Quentin. They made my book club, #1 read book, and I was requested to return to San Quentin. So this is good. They want this information. They want to give tools for sure.
I
I'm
like.
doing what I can.
You know what? I'm seeing you on social media. You're doing a lot more than what you can. I thought I was busy. You're always busy. I'm like, okay, there she goes again. how can the viewers how can the viewers reach out to you and support your cause?
Uh, Instagram is the best way, under my name, Hazel Ortega Official. And I still check all my messages. I have 1,000 tickets to give away for justice impacted communities, families, for free to come and see my story on stage
Mm-hmm.
and receive my book and giveaways. We're going to have a lot of fun that day,
That
November
sounds
23rd in Los
November
Angeles.
in Los Angeles. Guys, make sure you click, share, like, follow the whole 9 yards. All it takes is one click to make a difference in somebody's life, as well as your own. You know what? You had such a beautiful story, Hazel. If I've heard many stories on this platform, and yours by far is one of the top on the list, because despite everything that you've gone through, you're still out there with boots on, doing what you need to do to make a difference. And my hat's off to you. You definitely have that beast mindset. With that said, thank you so much for taking time to come on the show. And ladies and gentlemen, like I always say, this has been another, and I do mean another, exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Crayton show.